All right, this is Merck 2021 Q4 earnings call summary. They did beat the expectations of both revenue and profit, but the stock price has fallen by almost 3%. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Merck is still considered the COVID loser, simply because of their competition with Pfizer and the COVID 19 um, um, cure, for lack of a better word. But the company is doing fairly good. They actually improved by about 15% this quarter, and that's pretty much an average number across their different segments. They deal with human, animal, and vaccines, and so yeah, like I said, they're doing pretty good. The one thing that I really like about doing these earnings calls for these biotech companies, if I get a chance to go down the rabbit hole on some of the new drugs that haven't made it out yet. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention, just real quick, they did talk about their COVID drug and what their expectations are for it in the future. So far, they've made almost $1 billion on it, and a lot of that is based on the contracts that they got agreed on with the different governments globally. They do expect to make about $5 or $6 billion in 2022 on that COVID drug. They're saying that the COVID drug, even though it's not as good as Pfizer's, that it's a better drug for those who are already on medication. So it has less reactions with other drugs, and so they think that that's where their drug is going to beat out Pfizer. The other thing that I think was really interesting is they said that they produced almost 10 million doses of the pill in 2021, meaning that if they wanted to, they don't have to make or spend any more money on this drug in 2022 and just sell what they have in inventory, which means they could really blow the doors off our earnings in 2022. But they did say that they plan on making something like 20 million more doses. For what reason, I don't know. I think maybe they really do think that their drug is something that will be needed in the market. They're also saying that their COVID drug is working well um, against Omicron. The other thing I think was really interesting is that they spoke about the different variants that may come, and I think that just goes to show that, I mean, when you have a medical biopharma company like Merck that talks about coming variants, it means that we're definitely going to see coming variants. And so they said that the risk is that this thing may become endemic, meaning that we may all just get it and then have basically natural immunity. Or it's possible that we will continue using these drugs that they've created to fight against the COVID and the coming COVID variants. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, I do want to jump into just their drug pipeline. Now, I will say that you do have to be a bit of a biochemist, and you really have to go look at all the other biopharmas and what they are coming up with to try to determine which drug is going to work better, who's going to come to market first. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not a biochemist. And so even though I do find some of this stuff interesting, I don't try to predict whether or not one drug is going to work over another, or whether Merck is going to actually come to market first before some other company does with the same type of drug. It's just that's a lot. Shout out to those guys that analyze exclusively these biopharmas, and really get into the chemistry behind the different drugs and how they work, and what they think is going to happen as far as clinical trials go and stuff like that, because it's really interesting stuff, and I can imagine that can take up all of your time. I mean, I can't imagine trying to analyze any other industry when you're doing that sort of work. But what you see in front of you is a bit of their pipeline, and we'll kind of go down the list here for fun. The biggest one is the pneumococcal vaccine. And this one, I think, is, again, I don't know what the competitors are doing. I don't know what drug is going to actually come to market, but I do think it's interesting that we do, let's just say, as humans, right? Because I'm pretty sure if Merck is working on this, there's a bunch of people working on this, you know. But we're coming up with a vaccine for pneumonia and strep throat, and that's really cool because this is something that has plagued us for a long time, and so just getting one less thing out of the way will be pretty cool. The cardiac stuff, they are trying to lower bad cholesterol, especially in persons that have a genetic disposition to having high cholesterol. So that's something that I've been kind of monitoring myself because, of course, I'm at risk of having high cholesterol. A lot of the reason why I drink tea. So far, so good. Haven't had any issues, but it is something that is very common in my family anyway. And so, you know, the game plan is to attack the gene that makes bad cholesterol, basically. Just my kind of bro science description there. Neuroscience, the biggest one there is Alzheimer's and schizophrenia. Treatment-resistant depression, not quite sure what's going on there. As you can see, they're in phase 2 of that. I did speak about what the different phases mean in the last video. I don't think I need to go into that right now. And then immunology, the biggest thing there is going to be the HIV treatment. And I think I've said before, Merck is pretty much a cancer company. You know, even though we see these other drugs that they have, the bulk of their research is in cancer. And so we're going to take a look at what that is. Now, this is the disease at the top, and then at the bottom is the name of the drug. Some of these drugs have names. Some of them just have numbers because they haven't come up with a name yet. And we're just kind of just scroll down the list here and see kind of what's going on. Pulmonary hypertension, we see that one. Hepatitis, non-alcoholic. This chikungunya virus, I was curious about that one because this is one of the only viruses that they're actually working on right now. So I want to talk about that just real quick. Now, I Googled this, just a quick Google, just to see what it was. And it's something that is spread by mosquitoes. So it's something like malaria. It is worldwide. But the thing is that it says most people will feel better within a week or so. And it's fewer than 1,000 cases in the U.S. a year. Is listed as extremely rare. And so when you see something like this on the list as an investor, you think to yourself, why are we spending money on this thing? Like, I don't get it, right? But from a human standpoint, you realize very quickly that it's really important that we do have large companies like Merck working on those rare diseases that aren't necessarily profit making, but I mean, they're diseases that we want to try to cure and get over. And so it's important that they do put forth some sort of effort. I imagine, too, that there's probably something in the chemistry that says that if they figure out how to fix this, they'll be able to fix something else. So that's always a possibility. We see the HIV thing. That's very interesting. We think we already talked about the schizophrenia. And then a lot of these are the cancers, melanoma, a lot of lung cancer stuff, a lot of breast cancer stuff, renal cell, which I believe is kidney, prostate, which is a big one. I kind of went down the rabbit hole on that one a little bit. Okay, and then Keytruda. Keytruda, I didn't bring this up at the beginning, but Keytruda is right now their flagship medicine. And what they've been doing with Keytruda, they own the patent for it. Okay, the patent is only good until the end of the decade. I think 2028. And then once that patent is up, then anyone can make Keytruda. So what Merck is doing is they're trying to get Keytruda implemented in as many procedure manuals as possible. And it's really interesting how this works. Good thing or bad thing, these drug companies, they come up with the drug and then they figure out a way to make their drug the primary treatment for any particular type of situation. And there's hundreds, right? So for instance, if you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, I have, let's just say, breast cancer, right? But along with this breast cancer, I also have kidney damage, or I also have hypertension, or I also have, some sort of heart disease or something. The doctor is going to say, okay, well, we know what the symptoms are, and we have a bunch of treatments, but we can only treat you based on what the insurance company is willing to pay for, unless you're paying us cash, right? And so the insurance company is going to say, okay, so we know that we have these drugs. We know that these drugs work for this particular disease with these particular symptoms, right, and situations. And we already have a deal with the drug company about how much we're going to pay. Bam, prescriber this. And so that's the way it works. And so what Merck has been doing is they've been trying to get Keytruda in as many treatment plans as possible for all sorts of different types of things. I mean, like I said, you can really go down a rabbit hole on this stuff. There's so many situations. I mean, you got to think about the difference between a child having cancer versus an adult having cancer versus an elderly person having cancer, and you got to think about all the things surrounding what may also be going on. They may be on a different medication that reacts poorly with the Keytruda or whatever. So it's just, that's what they're doing, and they're doing that until 2028. Now, the one thing that I saw a lot of that I did want to bring up because I thought it was interesting is this Lada Daruzabadabadab, Vidaduin. And so what they're doing is they're basically taking two molecules, two drugs, and they're putting them together and figuring out how these things work together. And as you can see, they are trying to get this particular drug, MK6440, into a bunch of these cancers. Okay, and you see the others there too, but this is the one that I was really interested in, and it's just kind of shows you how they are looking at curing this stuff. Okay, so here's the molecule up here. Here's the drug. Okay, and what this drug does is it goes inside of the cancer cell, and it disrupts whatever the cancer cell is doing, and then kills it. Okay. Now, again, I'm not a biochemist, but I imagine that a lot of this is going to, be predicated on, okay, so we figured out how to kill this particular tumor cell or cancer cell, but what happens then with this protein after it's done, right? Does it come out in urine? does it get absorbed into the body? Like, what's going on here? And so that's always kind of what we're looking at. But I just thought this was interesting. I mean, this is where medical science is. I think this is basically how most diseases are being approached at this point, is you figure out how to get something into the cell that's causing the disease, kill it, and then somehow dissipate, right? And again, this is it's interesting stuff, and I don't think that this is going to change anytime soon. We're probably going to be fighting diseases this way for quite a while. And so anyway, that's that. Let's keep going down here. So we'll see a lot of Keytruda. This other one, Lenvima, is actually a drug that's already on the market, which is why you see a name there. And again, just like Keytruda, they're trying to get it put into as many treatment plans as possible. And of course, they have to test it first. And so everything that you're seeing here is phase 2. Phase 2. So that means that these are just clinical trials, right? The other thing that I really like about going through this stuff, Welreg is another one, is that, I haven't had to deal with any sort of serious illness myself, but I have said over and over again, primarily because I've been going through these biopharma companies, Pfizer before this one, is that when you have these issues, you definitely want to look up and look out for these clinical trials. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to be a lab rat. I don't want them just trying out anything and everything on me. And I understand that. I feel the same way. But what's important is that you can go in and look this stuff up. You can research for yourself how this stuff works, what the side effects are. And then you can find where the clinical trials are being held and then sign up for it. I think, is it this site? Because I was looking at so much stuff concerning this, and I must have gotten rid of it. But anyways, you can Google a lot of these drugs, and you'll find the clinical trial information there, and it'll say that if you have this, and this, then you can sign up for this clinical trial. If you have this, you can't be in this trial, right? So you do have to kind of get in where you fit in, but the point is, it may work. That's the thing, And if you wait for the clinical trials to be over with and this thing to be approved by the FDA, you're talking about what, 2029? A lot of these drugs are predicted to come out 2029. That's if, like I said, they pass all the scrutiny of all these different clinical trials. The other thing is some countries approve the drugs sooner than others. Some countries approve them, some countries don't. So the drug may not be approved in the U.S., but you may be able to go to France and get this drug. So it's just, again, I think it's really important just to be educated and understand kind of how this stuff works and how to take advantage of it, if that time comes. And then these are the ones that's under review. What are we doing? What happened here? Talks about no. See that. Happened. Phase 2. Phase 3, and then under review. This is what I want to look at. Okay, there we go. Yeah. And so these are under review for the actual FDA, right? So they've already gone through clinical trials. They've passed clinical trials. We know they work. We know the side effects, and they still have to wait to be approved by the government. And what's important here is, as you can see, top of the list, antiviral COVID-19, it has received emergency approval, meaning that they've received approval to start selling this stuff and start giving this stuff out to just, regular people, but they still don't have the official FDA government stamp. And that's in the US and the EU. I think they've already received approval in more than a few other countries, but not the US or the EU. The other thing that's interesting is this cough. They call it a chronic cough. So adults with a chronic cough, they have a medicine that I guess will get rid of that. That's not cough syrup. which is interesting. And then this is the pneumonia vaccine that we talked about before. So that's it. Merck Q4 2021.